hoping that Kara, Dewan, Kenny, Jace, Isaiah, Tyler, Evan, that they will turn on their camera at some point. Today, we're doing something called a Sports Management Club Lunch and Learn. Okay, what do we mean by that? Well, we've brought in some what I consider very important people. So I brought in some very important people. Sorry, I was listening to myself as I put the stream on. So we brought in some pretty important people today to talk a little bit about their experiences during school, as well as with the club, as well as with their experiences in the industry. What I'm going to ask of you guys is to make sure you're muted and switch over to speaker view for me. Okay, and that way you can see the person talking, and basically they're the focus of what is happening. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to have each person introduce themselves to the class. Okay, Kai knows them very well. He's a classmate with some of them. So I've got three graduates this time. Three graduates. I forgot. Erica has graduated. Three graduates. I forgot you graduated and you're a graduate student now. Three graduates and one current senior. Okay. Kai, you can chime in anytime you want with this too, as our co-instructor / peer mentor. So with that said, I'm going to hand the reins over to Michael. You're going to be the person talking first. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
All right. Well, my name is Michael Taco. I graduated December 2019, sport management. I was a transfer student in August 2017 from IU Kokomo and Ivy Tech. Came in with no experience at all in sports. The closest thing I had was Dick's Sporting Goods and Golf Galaxy. And here I am 3 years later, and my resume is like 3 pages full, all because of SMC and the connections it made. So what I want to do for a career, I honestly just something involving events or pretty much, yeah, just have events either with Colts or Grand Park would be the two main goals of mine. But honestly, as long as it has full-time benefits, I'm good to go anywhere.
That's exactly what everybody's looking for right now is full-time benefits,
I
right?
know, and it's a struggle.
So we'll shift over to Kyle Mechelin. Kyle, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing.
Yeah, my name is Kyle Michelin. I graduated this past May. I also was a transfer student from California, and I transferred to IUPUI knowing absolutely zero people in the entire state of Indiana. So that was a bit of a transition for me, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about that. But Sport Management Club was huge for my experience and professional development while I was at IUPUI. It got me basically every single opportunity I was ever able to take advantage of and experience through. And I think that is about it. I'm also passionate about events and volunteer management, and I'm looking for positions in there right now. But COVID has made it a little bit difficult.
So a couple of graduates, they're currently job hunting. They have had some great experiences during their college career. I'm going to shift over to Kyle Clay. He's the current student that is in his senior year, and you may have already heard from him, talked to him, met him, but I'm gonna let him take the floor for a moment.
So as he said, my name is Kyle. I'm a first semester senior here at IUPUI. I also came from out of state, not really knowing anybody in the state of Indiana, to come to IUPUI, mainly for the experiences. It beat everywhere else I looked and got accepted into. So far, I've pretty much worked with every sports organization in Indy. Right now, I'm currently in the process of being a year-long intern for Indiana Sports Corp, which I'm sure you've heard about. If you haven't heard about, I'm sure you'll hear about it today. And what I want to do after school is I want to be a team administrator for any professional team, because I've been doing it for 3 full seasons with Indy 11, which is the professional soccer team in Indianapolis.
All right, nice synopsis. And our final guest today is a graduate from this past May, Erica McKibben. She is not a sport management person. She is actually coming from the tourism side. So, and I will interject before she gets started that if things come to your mind, tourism, sports students, doesn't matter. If things come to your mind, pop the questions in the chat and I will be moderating them. I will read them. I won't read your name. I'll just read the question. So you can send it to me privately if you'd like, or you can send it in the chat. Erica, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I did my undergrad at IUPUI in the tourism and event management major. I'm from Indianapolis, so I was fortunate enough to know some people around the city already. And then now I am pursuing my master's degree also at IUPUI in sports tourism. So that will be done in the end of July next year. So it's a 1-year program. And then after school, I would love to work in community relations or player relations for a professional team.
And she's got the unique perspective of having done some community relations and guest relations with different teams. So I'm going to first ask a question myself of each one of the panelists. And again, if something comes to your mind, feel free to ask. Any question can be asked. If it's phrased weird, I'll rephrase it. It's perfectly fine. Get your question across because I'm sure you've got them. If you don't, then you're not doing something you should be. So my first question to you guys is it's not necessarily about the club or about student orgs, but your experience. And I'll start with Erica. So your experience at IUPUI, obviously these folks are enduring something a little bit different right now than what you guys did, right? So how did you start your career at IUPUI and then kind of adjust to the environment of college?
Well, my initial college experience, I actually started out as a biology major. So in my sophomore year, I transferred or switched over to the tourism program. So that was a big difference, just kind of coming in late to the program. I had to make friends and kind of catch up very quickly, which I did. And it was stressful, but it was worth it because I got lots of great experience just by doing everything I could. I was volunteering, I was taking unpaid internships, I was involved in SMC, PCMA, MPI, all kinds of different groups, and yeah.
Expand on PCMA and MPI.
PCMA is the Professional Convention Management Association, and MPI is the Meeting Professionals International. So on campus we have they're all together. It's MPI, PCMA, and ILEA have one chapter here on campus, and they do a lot of stuff with the Greater Midwest chapters for those associations. I was fortunate enough to go to PCMA's convention for 2 years where my trip was paid for almost in full. 1 year I got to go to Pittsburgh and the other year I went to San Francisco. So that was nice to be able to go there and network with other people in the industry.
And obviously now with all the restrictions happening, that's likely not happening and mostly will be virtual, but it doesn't necessarily preclude you from having the opportunity to do it. So with that said, Michael, I'm going to go to you. And so what have you, I guess, been doing since graduation? What have you been doing, A, and B? Your transition was a little different. Erica's was coming from IUPUI as a different major. Yours is coming from a different school. And Kyle, you can relate to this as well, Michelin.
Can we go ahead?
Yes.
All right. So when I transferred here, I started out IU Kokomo as criminal justice. I then went to Ivy Tech as business, and then finally figured out about sport management, about IUPUI, and came here. So essentially, even though I did transfer in, I was essentially a freshman in the sense of first time here, didn't have any experience. So I kind of had the mindset, well, I researched, I knew we had a sport management club, which it means, but I knew I had to get a step further. So during the weeks of welcome, the basketball team was out there and with our athletic director, and I made my basic resume I had that had 2 things on it, and I just went up to athletic director and introduced myself, said I'd love to volunteer for any games, events you have, and gave him a business card that was super cheap that I made, but gave him that, and he had me come in for like a quick little interview with him and our associate AD and volunteer for a month and turn to a paid position. And then same thing, kind of similar with Indy 11. Kyle and I started at the same time, but he did team operations. I did game ops, and same thing. Introduced myself, came as a volunteer to end that season at Carroll Stadium, and then in January found out they're going to play at Lucas Oil, which is where they do now. And Andy Piggish, the director of operations, just reached out to all of us and said, "Hey, we're gonna still want you guys to come back. We're gonna do it at Lucas Oil, so we're gonna do a tour so you can see everything, and also we're gonna start paying you guys." So two volunteer positions turned into paid spots, and then just from there on out, I just that kind of set the foundation. Just kept rolling, which each different team just either applying for to volunteer, part time internship, and it just kept rolling. And then now, as a graduate, it's kind of been a struggle because the pandemic can't really find anything. So through my connections that I made from IUPUI and SMC, I was able to go back to work at Bullpen Terminus, the baseball side of Grand Park. I was able to keep my job at Indy 11 once they resumed play. And now I'm heading back to Grand Park, all because of I've worked there before because of my experience and made a good impression on them enough to where they said, "Yeah, we'd like to have you come back."
Mention, what about your experience?
My experience in transitioning to IUPUI. Sorry, just
Yes, the transition to IPY, college life, and
Yeah.
getting the experiences that you needed.
Definitely. So, yeah, I transferred from California. I went to a 2-year college out there. It saved me a lot of money, thankfully. But transferring was definitely a little scary. I knew I wanted to go in sports management, and I was looking all over the country. I applied IUPUI, Texas A&M, University of Miami, and once I got my acceptance letters and stuff, and I looked at my options, I knew that IUPUI was in Indianapolis and it had the best opportunities for me. And I knew about the sports management club, and those were two things I wanted to work for teams in the city, and I wanted to get involved in the sports management club when I got there. I was lucky enough. I moved in to an apartment with random roommates. Kyle Clay was one of my roommates. He was already involved in sports management club, so I had connections there right off the bat because Kyle and I hit it off pretty well and became friends. So that was an amazing experience for me because I went from moving to Indiana knowing nobody to I made friends with my roommates, and then because of that, I got more involved with the sports management club, and then that sports management club became my core group of people. And so when it came to actually getting the experiences, sports management club was so great because everyone is so ingrained in the sports community. All the members are so ingrained in the sports community in Indianapolis that Kyle Clay pointed me in the direction of the conversion crew for Bankers Life Fieldhouse. And I think within like 2 weeks of me living there, I got a job with the Pacers, which blew my mind. And then, they pointed out, Kyle Clay also pointed out the Indians when it was coming up. And so I applied for the Indians and I got in with the Indians on the grounds crew, and I absolutely loved it. I even got to do like a month-long internship with them at the end when one of their interns had to leave early. And that was just off being there, doing good work, being early every day, asking where to help. And when that position opened up, I said, I'll take it if you guys will let me. And they did. So yeah, I mean, sports management club with volunteering too. When you volunteer through sports management club, you get exposed to a lot more and you get opportunities that you don't really get elsewhere. Sports management clubs built a reputation with a lot of the teams and organizations in Indianapolis. And so you get good experiences right off the bat, but you also get to do those experiences, get to meet the people who put on the events, and you can take the next step and get into even a higher level of position. I volunteered with Indiana Sports Corp quite a few times. Eventually I was offered a fan zone captain for the Big Ten football championship fan fest. So I was able to lead a whole team of volunteers. And then the next month in January, I was actually, I took over as the volunteer coordinator intern for Indiana Sports Corp. And all of that was just connections and volunteering. And that all came from Sports Management Club. It was completely instrumental in my professional development, my educational development, and honestly having fun while I was in college too, because I made so many friends through the club. I couldn't imagine if I didn't join the club, to be honest.
So the funny thing is what you're hearing is student organizations from SMC to PCMA to MPI to ILEA, which is the International Live Events Association. That's another one that's major. Okay, concerts, things like that. Obviously, if you want to get into that. Kyle Clay. Okay, you've given us some information previously, I'm sure, but tell us a little bit more. You know, your experiences coming from Pennsylvania, right?
Sorry, I was drinking. So yeah, I obviously came from Pennsylvania. Um, Knew nobody but my mom who lived here. She's the one who found this university. Um, and I basically just got started from basically the first week. Like Taco said, Indy 11 used to play at Carroll. So I volunteered at all their home games that first fall semester in 2017. And then after that, I was offered an internship. And I've been an intern with Indy 11 since then. Actually, I have my 2 last games in the next week. So I'm kind of upset. It's been a good run. And then, yeah, just volunteering through the club, getting known by people, which led me to being president for SMC for 2 years. Actually, I'm in my second year right now. I've worked with basically any sports team here, just from getting involved and knowing people. Going to networking events is a big thing. That's how you learn a lot of people. And when you pass out your resume, if it's a good looking resume, they'll remember you. And yeah, so just getting involved early, whether you're tourism or sports, is very important. I know you guys are at a little disadvantage right now, but nobody's really volunteering right now, so nobody's really getting ahead of you. But when opportunities do arise, take whatever opportunities are given to you, because 1, you never know who's watching you, and 2, you never know where it's going to lead. So like today, since I'm with Indiana Sports Corp, today we were at the NCAA warehouse unpacking 2020 Final Four stuff to get ready for the 2021 Final Four that's happening in Indianapolis this upcoming spring. So it's just stuff like that if you volunteer, get to know people, you get to partake in. You could sit in the back of the classroom and not get involved and not get this experience, but it's only going to come back to hurt you in the end. So my advice is just get involved early when you can, and do everything and anything, because you don't know what you like and don't like yet. So as you do everything, you'll get to learn what you don't like. So that way, come junior and senior year, you're only doing things that you like, which will then set you up for hopefully a job after school. So yeah.
Excellent. All right. So I'm going to kind of deviate a little bit and ask the question of each one of you. Okay. The question that I have is, what was your favorite event to work? Right. I know you've worked multiple events. Erica, I know you're probably racking your brain. I know the other 3 have them right off the top of their head, but you're probably racking your brain. But what was your favorite one to take part in? Let's start with Clay. Let's start with you.
All right. So I have a favorite moment, and then I have like a favorite event, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but my favorite moment was definitely the Champions Classic. Just because I got to, is such a big magnitude event to kick off the basketball season, and it was Zion's first game, and I ended up actually being one of the bench managers for Duke and Michigan State that night. So that was pretty awesome. Actually, the ones who were selected for that were the ones that Dr. Sherman thought were the best performers in the major, basically. So there was probably 10 or 12 of us that got selected. But my favorite event, it probably had to be Indy 11, because that led to my future throughout college. Without volunteering at that event, who knows what I would be doing these days. Like I said, I've been with them for 3.5 years. So that has to be my favorite sporting event, but my favorite moment was definitely the Champions Classic.
What about you, Mechlin?
I think the favorite event that I got to work was the Eastern Conference Championship game for the USL. It was with the Indy 11. I was the red hat, which meant I got to literally be right at midfield. And I was the liaison between the press box, the media booth, and the 4th official. but what was like really cool about it, aside from just being on the field and like I got to watch the game from that close, is throughout the day too, because of my connections with Kyle Clay. I got to help out with the equipment team and some, I think it was just mainly equipment team, but I did some other work around it was in Carroll Stadium because I think there was a conflict of scheduling with some other event at Lucas Oil, but it was still, I got to see everything that went into getting the team ready. And I hadn't had any experience before in that. So that one day, like I did like 5 different areas of setting up and putting on an event that I literally had no experience in. And I felt like I was learning from like 8 in the morning till like midnight. Oh, and we had the Monumental Marathon that morning too. And I think I was at a table with Kyle Clay and Erica and then another student. And so my day started like 5, I think, or something. It was crazy. But it was like, I learned so much that day. It was perfect.
Michael, what about you?
I'll go with Kyle. Like favorite moment was that Champions Classic with the fact that it's the unofficial opener and it travels different cities. That we got lucky enough in 2018 to have it in Indy, and I got to be chosen by you to be. I was a locker room host, so just I got the guide. I think I did Duke and Michigan State. I got to guide them from the time they got off the bus to their locker room, and then just kind of hang out there. If they had any questions, I'd answer. And then once they left, and I got to watch the game too, because I mean during the game there wasn't much, so actually you get to watch it. Then once they left, anything they left, we got to keep. So I got basketball still. I got a ton of Gatorade products. I almost got Coach K's sandals, but a trainer came back and got them, so missed out on that one. But so and then I want to switch things up from what I said yesterday. I think a favorite of I wouldn't say favorite, but like one of the top events I worked was the Indy 500 weekend. I got to be a part of the college program in 2018 as well, and I worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday for that whole weekend. And I think in 3 days I worked around 40 hours. And on Sunday I had to be there at three in the morning until pretty much when the race was over. And I got to be inside the track right at turn number 3, just kind of like I got to be in like a really heavy spot where people were just hanging out watching the race, having a little too many drinks. But I mean, it was kind of fun to watch it, making sure they didn't die though. But anyway, so you got and it was just a cool experience because that's like the biggest event in the country, in the world almost, a lot of people say. And like you're right there in the thick of it with the IMS polo on. You're literally an employee essentially. You're working there. So that's something that people still ask me about my resume. And then if it weren't for SMC volunteering there as to do parking, then they wouldn't have hired me on as college program.
Yep, that was a great year when it came to the 500 and all of the events surrounding IMS. Erica, how about you?
Okay, so I have 2. And I don't know that it's necessarily my favorite, but probably the one that sticks out in my head the most was I was working the Colts game, standing on the field when Andrew Luck retired. And just being there and seeing the madhouse that was Lucas Oil at the moment was just something that I probably will never forget. And just kind of, I mean, I worked as a suite level guest services rep. So I took people who were in the suites down to the field for 2 minutes during the game, and they got to stand there and take pictures, and then I had to take them back up to their suite. So I was down there for a matter of 2 minutes, and I was standing on the field when somebody tweeted it or whatever, and everyone started freaking out. So that was probably the most memorable. My favorite event that I've worked was actually with Miles Turner, and his agent had reached out to Alyssa, who was also a SMC member, and 4 or 5 of us got to work his event after a Pacers game where we set up a table, and he had purchased all these supplies for his cheer block. I don't remember what it's called, but they all came after the game and packed bags of water bottles, blankets, gloves, food, toothbrushes to give to the homeless around the city. So that was cool to be a part of, just to see kind of the power that professional athletes have, and that they do care about things outside of their game that they play, and they want to make an impact in the community around them. So that was probably my favorite.
And if you didn't know, it's Miles Turner's Warm initiative that he does. That was the event, but the Turner's Block, you had it right. It was
Yeah.
Turner. Yes,
Mm,
Turner's
that's
Block came
close.
down. Yes. So we've been connected with Miles Turner's agent, and we've been connected through multiple channels there. So a couple of questions have popped into the chat, and so the first one is directed toward you, Erica, and it's did you happen to do any study abroad electives, or would you suggest that maybe students try to do those when they become available?
That is I actually did study abroad and I loved it. But unfortunately it wasn't anything to do with our major with sports, or well, I guess tourism. I mean, it was a philanthropy study abroad program, and I did it the for 2 weeks, the May between my freshman and sophomore year. So it was right when I switched from biology to um, tourism, and I was kind of up in the air on what I wanted to study. But I do suggest studying abroad, just because being in a different country and learning a different culture is something that I think everybody should do. It's very eye-opening to see how other countries do things compared to the United States. So no matter what you're studying or where you're going, if you have the opportunity, I say do it.
Where did you end up going?
I was in Berlin, Germany. I was there for 2.5 weeks with 10 other students, and it was just one class that we had to take, and Monday through Friday we usually from about 9 to 3 we had class. We would go to different places and learn different things about like their nonprofit sector, and then the rest of the time we could do whatever we wanted. So we would travel to other parts of the country on the weekends, and it was really fun.
Sounds like an awesome opportunity.
Yeah.
So yes, in other words, if you can
Yes.
do study abroad and it comes back to where we have the ability to do it, then our suggestion is yes, take advantage of it. Also, not just for you, but this for everybody. And this is one of the things that I think, and Erica, you can echo this, and Michael, I think you can echo this too. I know for sure Kyle and Kyle can both echo this, is that tourism and hospitality, the two of them are inextricably tied to sport. Okay. So while you may not be interested in sport, that doesn't preclude you from being in the tourism and hospitality industry. So I guess Kyle Mechelin, with your experience last spring, talk a little bit about how that relationship exists between sport and tourism, and talk about your internship a little bit, because the question that came in was, do you have any internship ideas related to tourism hospitality? And in reality, it doesn't necessarily have to just be in that industry. It can be tied to something else and yet still be in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last semester, I was the volunteer operations intern for Indiana Sports Corp. And so with that, I got to get a really good understanding of like the different types of staffing that needs to go into putting on an event. And hospitality is like completely ingrained in every single event that we had. I mean, almost every, at least. With the Big Ten basketball tournament, there was a full hospitality section that we had, and then there was the NCAA Division I swim and dive, and we had a team of like 4 volunteers each day doing hospitality things, and then 1 head volunteer who led the whole effort on it. So I guess the way to say it is that you can volunteer in the sports sphere, but you're still able to gain experience in tourism, and you can open yourself up to experiences in hospitality and tourism that you wouldn't have had any other way. Because the thing is that those hospitality positions are extremely important, and they don't put them to the public for that reason. So as a result, you have to volunteer with an organization like Indiana Sports Corp for a few events and make a name for yourself, make a connection with Megan or whoever is typically in charge of hospitality. And then you can get early access to those positions. You can get offered them before they're even put to the public. So yeah, volunteering in sports is going to open the door to other areas. Leave it at that.
Absolutely. So, Erica, you've been working with Grand Park Sports Complex. How is that kind of been tied to the major that you A, completed, and B, are currently working in?
Yeah, so I have been here at Grand Park for 2.5 years now. I started out as a client services and events intern, where I kind of got to see in a way, the hospitality side of the complex, dealing with clients every day, making sure that they have their hotel blocks set up for their tournaments, that they have all of the ancillary things that they need for their tournaments. The big thing that we did my first year was our first year hosting the Colts training camp. So kind of dealing with the Colts being on site and making sure that they were happy and things like that. Now I am in an administrative assistant role, and I still am kind of in the client services department, but I handle all of our accounts receivable, which is never really something that I pictured myself doing, but I love it. I love it, and I love the people I work with. And everybody here is so knowledgeable and connected in the community. So that is also very helpful because I still find myself asking questions about things that don't even really pertain to my specific duties, just because I like to know how it works to book a hotel block for a tournament of 10,000 teams, whatever, something crazy. It's very interesting, and I always find these things that I'd learned in my major, as far as things that I might have learned in a marketing class or my tourism class when we do our economic impact. That was the biggest thing to me that I was like, oh my gosh, I know how to do that because I learned it in school. So it's always a cool thing when you know how to do something and people don't expect you to. So that's kind of how my role here ties into what I was studying.
Yes, that's kind of what I anticipated. I can't believe you're not accounts receivable, though. I was not anticipating you being on that side of things. But hey, as long as you're happy and you're excelling at it, right?
I like numbers, apparently.
Who'd ever thought? Kyle Clay, while you're playing there with Odie, so you're currently working at Indiana Sports Corporation. So shed some light into what you're experiencing in your first few weeks at that internship with the planning for next year's Final Four, right? The tie to the hospitality and tourism portion of it.
Well, right now I'll just say it's complete mayhem. So right now the NCAA is going through furloughs for 3 to 8 weeks. So 3/4 of our planners are gonna not be working at some point in the next 3 to 8 weeks. So that's a lot of time and a lot of important people that are, now gone. So it's kind of crunch time right now before they all hit furlough. But yeah, I mean, to put on a Final Four, I mean, I'm in meetings like every single day, whether it's, interior and exterior meetings for Lucas Oil Stadium and entrances and where a cement barrier is going to go on this road and where it's going to go on that road and who's going to be standing in this corner and how are we going to get Mark Emmert in this entrance and out this exit and, hotels and stuff like that and where the teams are going to stay and where it's just there's so much that is happening to put on an event. And I don't think people really realize what it takes to put on an event, but it takes everybody in the city from the governor to the police to the hotels to the convention center and all that. And I think people, when they think of just sports, is just what's happening on the field, but there's so much that actually happens behind the scenes. And I think I've only been there 2 weeks and it feels like I've been there 2 years. There's been so much that's been thrown at me in the 2 year or in the 2 weeks. And now Big Ten is going to be coming back to Indy. So now it's crunch time for the Big Ten championship that's going to be happening in Indy December 19th, which usually they take a year to plan, and now we have till December 19th to plan on top of the Final Four. So yeah, if you don't hear from me, you know where I am.
Complete mayhem is a good way to describe it right now. I think that's the entire sports industry at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And then plus they're in talks with other things that are going to be happening. So there's about 50 things that are going on at one time, and in turn you're just kind of just thrown right in there. And I think I probably had like 5 meetings in my first day, and I sat in these meetings and was like, what in the world is even happening?
He's
So
finding out quickly. When intro, I told him that he'd be throwing 15 or 20 balls up in the air at the same time and trying to catch them all at once. That's what's happening right now. So yeah, welcome to the life now, right? Another one popped in from the chat. So this goes for, and Michael, I'll start with you on this one. How should you prepare yourself when you're getting ready to do your first volunteer event?
Definitely do your research, find out like what you're doing, what you need to wear, if it's going to be hot or cold, make sure you're not freezing or burning up. Bring your snacks. Like it's a bunch of little things and also I guess figure out where you're going. The worst thing you want to do is, especially if it's an indie sports corp event, if it's like the corporate challenge and you go and you don't know where to park because you didn't pay attention and you're late, and now it's already a bad impression on you. So, I mean, really it's simple as just do your research to find out exactly what you're doing, read your emails to see if they told you anything, and that is really just about it. And then once you get there, do your job and try to make a name for yourself, stand out in some way so that way they can remember you and have fun with it.
Did that happen to you? The late thing? There was an awful lot of detail there with the
No,
make sure you're not late. Okay, I just wanted to make
no,
sure there was an awful lot of
I've
detail there.
I've seen volunteers be late, and I've been a part on the other side where they are late, and then you're like, gosh dang it, and you have to run around and try to make up for it. So show up early. 5 minutes is on time, 10 minutes is early.
uh, I'll add on to that, even though it may not be my turn, but I'm going to talk anyway. If you sign up for a volunteer event, make sure you show up.
Yes.
If you don't show up, you're already down the drain, and you might as well just not even try to volunteer for them again. Especially Indiana Sports Corp. If you don't show up for one of their events, you just basically go to the bad list. And then Dr. Sherman and as president of SMC, we find out, and then we don't put you in any volunteer spots that we may have, because we only want to give the best. Hopefully we have all the best, but we don't want to give somebody that doesn't show up to events to an important organization like Indiana Sports Corp. I think in one of our meetings, at one of the events, there was like a group of like 200 students that like dropped out like the last day or something, like a few years ago. And that's just a big hole to fill. I know one person's not as big of a hole to fill, but it still should never happen. So if you commit to something, make sure you stay committed, unless of course like an emergency, comes up. And don't be afraid to ask to do something else. That's how I did Indy 11. I was starting off as game ops, and before the first game, I was like, I'm going to shoot a message to, Andy Pigish, who's the guy of game ops, and see if I could do player ops, because that's one thing I wanted to do. And he was like, sure, thanks for asking. So they put me with them, and look where it led. So don't be afraid to talk to people and ask people to try different positions, because most of the time they're going to help you, because they all want you to succeed. So don't be afraid to ask.
And along with that, kind of like what I said, to stand out, if like you're a volunteer, if you're in one spot and they say, hey, I need two of you to go here, it's urgent. Don't be the one that just stands back and says, oh, I don't want to go. Like, do it, because that shows initiative and that shows, oh, hey, they're willing to do whatever it takes. And so, yeah, just wanted to add on to that.
I can jump in too from the perspective of the volunteer coordinator really fast. I will say with Indiana Sports Corp, we can see if you've like no-showed for a shift. So like, don't think it's something that slips under. Like, if you commit to volunteering, like make sure you can fulfill that commitment. It's very, very important. And yeah, that's all I'll say about that. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse there. I will say, if you're going to an event, try to figure out who is like the volunteer coordinator or who's in charge of volunteers. People in the club know, you can probably look it up. With Indiana Sports Court, it's Megan Barr. And just introduce yourself when you get to your shift. We remember, I swear, I think I still know like half the volunteers I talked to's name, and it's been like months. So you can make an impression like that. If you show up with a positive attitude and you're willing to help out wherever you can, that's going to make a huge impact on the connections that you make there. And also my thing, if you aren't in a rush to get out and you finish your shift, it is never like wrong to say, hey, is there anything else you guys need help with before I get going? Because that's you putting yourself in a place if they're shorthanded, which really it happens more often than we'd like. But you can fill a gap there. Maybe you get to do something that you wouldn't have had access to before, but because you just did a great job on your volunteer shift and you're still looking to help, they'll put you into something. And then that's a connection. You know how to do that now. They know your name and that you have experience in it. And maybe that private shift that you wouldn't have access to is now open to you for the next year and they reach out to you for it. There's a lot of ways that you can make yourself stand out, and just being positive and willing to help, I think, are the two most important things you can do with volunteering. And then just one more point, if you're volunteering through Sport Management Club, try to, like, if it's a big group event or you're in a big group, try to get to know the people in the club. That's the same as networking with people like Megan Barr. It's similar, because people in the Sport Management Club are really connected in the city. They're all planning on going into the sports industry basically, or, you know, have passions about it. So those connections can come back later. You make friends. Volunteering is amazing. Obviously I'm biased because I was a volunteer coordinator intern, but I love it. I think it's a great experience, and I think you should volunteer as much as you can.
And always be willing to share. I'll add in on that. Always be willing to share. You know, don't just keep your contacts in a silo. You know, you're all working together to try to get out into the industry, and the best way to do that is, I'm a clearinghouse for most of that stuff. I can always help with that. You know, and that's the thing, is that when you hold it in a silo, the rest of the members don't get a chance to take advantage of that potentially, you know. And I know we're all out for ourselves and but at the same time, sometimes the group can benefit from one person's initiative, and that could pay off for you in the long run as being the person that's willing to give it. You know what I'm saying? Erica, what about you? You know, what about your thoughts on that same subject?
I have done my fair share of volunteering, and I know sometimes it stinks because you're not getting paid, but I will say that it's 100% worth it, because you do see all of the people in the industry know each other. And if you go for an interview and they see on your resume that you worked so and so event, that's just one extra talking point for you and for them to be able to get to know you better. Yeah.
Michael, what about you?
I mean, just repeat the question. Sorry, I totally just spaced
It's
out.
just the same time. It's just the same topic, volunteer stuff, right?
Oh,
And arriving, arriving early, leaving late. You know, is there a time when you've done that before?
There was one time, it's actually for Sports Corp, where I unfortunately wasn't able to make it because I had something pop up or was it last second, but like 2 days before. So instead of just no call, no show, I called Megan and I told her like, hey, unfortunately I have this situation come up. I will not be able to make it. And she didn't get mad at me. She actually thanked me for giving her a heads up, because even 2 days before, she had plenty of time to find someone to fill my shoes. And then we got a shirt. I was like, I mean, since I'm not volunteering, do I need to give back my shirt? It's like, no, you can keep it. It's all good. So, I mean, it's just little things can add up. Just always communicate if something happens. They rather hear that you can't make it because situation. It has to be like legit. You can't just say, "Oh, sorry, I overslept." I mean, it's gotta be real, but always communicate. Let them know what's going on. Then they're not going to be mad. They're just going to thank you for at least letting them know, because they don't want to be in the dark about it. And then kind of earlier, what Kyle said about just like wanting to do things and always asking if there's more to do. And if they say there's not, at least say thanks for letting me come out here to volunteer. Remind them of your name, and just a simple like handshake, or I guess now you got to do like an elbow bump, but just like just say thank you for letting me come out here. I had a blast, and I hope I can volunteer more. And a lot of people don't do that. They just once they say, "All right, you guys are good to go," they just take off. So be the one or two that actually goes back up to them, and they'll remember you more.
I have a actual story about staying late. Sherman was a part of it. Dr. Sherman was a part of this. Eric was Erica a part of it? Erica was a part of it.
This was, are you talking last fall?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to tell that story.
So we do rally towel distribution for Big Ten football championship, putting the team towels on their side. And I think Kyle and I were already, or somebody, we were already running late, and we got there and they were basically done in like 5 minutes. And everybody had left, and we were like, okay, this was stupid. We were here like 3 hours last year, and we're here 15 minutes this year. Something's not right. But we left anyway, and we literally got to our car, and I get a call from Dr. Sherman, and he's like, we got an issue. And I'm like, no, we don't. And he was like, yeah, we do. You need to come back. And I was like, no, I don't. So we went back anyway, missed dinner. And
Yeah, we were at Basbo's.
Now, wait a minute. If I recall correctly, it was me saying we have an issue. Would you be willing to come back? And you all said, we're getting ready to eat. And I said, I warned everybody that this was going to happen, because I truly did warn everybody. And I said, if you're not willing, that's fine, but I'd love it if you could. And 9 of them came back, and we spent, how long were we there?
We were probably there another 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, it
With
ended
half
up not.
the people.
And I'm pretty sure that's what killed Kyle that weekend too.
With way under half the people, by the way. We probably had a third of what we normally would have. We had like 40 volunteers to start, and then ended up with 10 at the end of the night. And the staff had to come in and start dropping pom-poms and cup holders. And yeah, it was, I love that story, because you guys were willing to come back, and you came back for not just me, but for ISC and for yourselves. That's the type of thing that we're talking about, right?
And this wasn't just the 100 level. This was the whole way up to about the 600 level.
400. We stopped at the 400. Yep. Nope. Your point is well taken, though.
You understand the point. We were not just doing the 100 level.
Yep. We started that way because the math was not calculating in Ashley's head. And I said, Ashley, I think we need to do more. And come to find out, there were 15 extra boxes on both sides when everybody, because I said, I guess I'll just let everybody go. And everybody left, and she comes over and she drops some words that can't be said here and said, we got to get people back. I said, I'm already on it. I've called, texted a couple of people. I said, we could probably get 7 or 8 back, and surely we had 9. So yes, and I still thank all of you for coming back, because not only did you bail me out, you bailed her out, and you all got much more love from them than expected. So a couple of questions have dropped in the chat. So first, Kyle, this is directed toward you, Kyle Clay. What's the difference between game operations and player operations? And this can actually be for those that have worked with the professional teams on that side, right? The game ops versus player ops. And what made you prefer Indy 11 over others?
Well, first of all, I'll pass the game ops to Taco, because Taco's done that before. I have never done game ops before, so I'm not even gonna blow smoke. So, but basically, team ops is I'm basically with the home team, the away team, and the officials. More so, the away team and the officials. So basically, I'm in charge of on game days, on normal game weekends, game days. I am in charge of making sure the team gets to the hotel. Okay, so there's tourism, working with the hotels and the teams, making sure when they get to the stadium, I unload all their bags off the bus and basically take them to the locker room, unload them into the locker room for them. I do tickets for the players. I do food for the players and teams. This year's a little different. My role is a little changed just because of all the COVID restrictions and whatnot. But basically, I'm working more individually with the teams. If it was like a professional job, you'd also be working hand in hand with like housing for the players and contracts with, the person in the main office who's doing the contracts with the head coach and the player agents. So basically, anything involved with the players is player ops. And what made me, well, I just wanted to do it because my cousin actually does it for the Buffalo Bills. So he got me started on that. And basically Indy 11 was just the first opportunity that was given to me, and I haven't let go for 3 years, but I'm going to let go here in 2 weeks. So I know the Colt, when you get to like the NFL and the MLB, it's a little more harder to get into that role. You kind of have to work your way up. I think my cousin was an intern for 3 full seasons before he actually got one of the main positions. So Indy 11 was just the first opportunity, and I hopped on it, and I've been there ever since. But I'll pass it over to Taco to let him tell you what game ops is.
All right, I'll stick with Indy 11 as well. So game ops is your behind the scenes action, pretty much. That's not indirect to what the actual gameplay the players are. So, for example, for Indy 11 on a normal game day, we would get there out early, kind of early, not as early as Kyle, but little after him. We would get stuff set up at each of the gates as where that's like the programs you pass out. That's if they have a rally tower, whatever type of thing they want to do that game, get that set up. We would then gates open. We would do that, and then after once we're done with that, we would go on the field, and then we would find out from the director of ops or ops coordinator like what promotions we have to do. So this is game ops is where your promotions kind of come in. So when there's timeouts, halftime, that's when you go out. That's when you do your t-shirt toss. That's when you have like your on the field activity going on. And so you're running that, but at the same time, it's like you have to be off in a certain amount of times. I know the Colts, I helped with them last year as part of events intern. The NFL is strict, and the Pacers are as well, Pacers fever, where if you're not off within a certain amount of time, team gets fined. So I mean, that's in the back of your mind, like you want to do well with it, but at the same time, gotta kind of hurry. And then after, so yeah, you do all the promotions, all the on-field stuff. You might have to go up, find a fan, have them come down, answer your questions to win a prize. And then afterwards, like you're passing out, like saying, thanks, here's a coupon for this or that. So, I mean, the simple way to say it, it's what's not going on the field involving players, refs, coaches, that kind of thing.
Yeah, game ops is a lot of, well, for instance, my background, most of the stuff, virtual background here, most of that stuff is game ops. All of the equipment, the scoreboard, all of that stuff is in game. But then there's game presentation, which is also, if you look at the backdrop that I have there, the lady on the far right, that is game presentation. The person running the boards, and obviously with the bubble, it was a little bit different. But game operations is more of the making the game function, whereas team operations is making sure the team is satisfied with everything they have: locker rooms, hotel, food, coaches are satisfied, their contracts are being fulfilled, whatever, that sort of stuff. So it's a little bit different, but you're going to learn a little bit more about that as we go along, and as you get into different roles, you're going to find out what the differences really are. Another question popped in. This one I'm going to skip and save for the end because it's one of my favorites. During the pandemic, what do you think is the best way to get involved with the sport community? That we're starting up events here come this winter and next spring. What is the best way for people to get involved at this point? What do you think? That's for anybody on the panel.
I'll jump in. Getting involved is obviously a little difficult right now, just with the lack of events currently available. Obviously things are slowly coming back, and there are going to be opportunities in the coming months. But I'll say the same thing I talked about yesterday on the same call. LinkedIn is an amazing resource to start building connections. And once you have a network and things like that, you'll see opportunities that pop up. There have been so many online conferences and panels. Indiana Sports Corp has been doing one. Dr. Sherman was on one. They've done presentations on how they've adapted their events for COVID. Taco mentioned that he found a free certificate program. So there's a lot of ways that you can professionally develop yourself right now, even though volunteer opportunities and work especially can be hard to find. There are so many resources online, and I feel like there are more and more popping up just because people have been stuck in quarantine for so long, and people, especially in this industry, are very motivated to improve themselves and find ways to make themselves more competitive. So if you're on top of it and you're on LinkedIn and you have connections, with Dr. Sherman, Dr. Pierce, you'll see those opportunities kind of pop up across your screen if you're monitoring LinkedIn, and you can do reflections on the panel that you were on and show that you are critically thinking about these times and how just anything in the sports industry, and find maybe people talking about areas that you're interested in. You can keep looking into that area. You can kind of fall down the rabbit hole on LinkedIn and just keep finding things to develop yourself with.
It's like what Kyle said, that certificate I did, it was during the summer, back like the beginning of quarantine, so there was like nothing going on. So I'm just sitting around, just like being bored, trying to figure out, okay, I need to do something. What can I do? And I saw it on LinkedIn actually. It was from Florida Atlantic University. They had a hospitality and tourism certificate that they like kind of condensed it a little bit to kind of fit the so they could do it. It would end up being a month long, but normally it's $900 and end up being for free. So you just had to kind of join a wait list, and they actually did, I think, 5 sessions of it. So that way they could get as many people as possible. So I ended up being like the second session. It took me a month to do. It was just like 14 different little things I had to watch videos about and then take a 10-question quiz. And that's all it did. And I got done, and they emailed me my certificate of my name, and now it's on my resume. So right now it's the perfect time. I know you're in class in school, so you're already learning, but now is the perfect time to learn about the sport industry. So that way, when we get more events, you're going to be a step ahead because you already kind of know what they're doing, what they're talking about. So when you go out there, instead of being lost and saying, "Oh no, I have to do this certain activity, I'm not sure how to do it," okay, well, we learned about how to do these kind of things in school or whatever you learned it, so I can step up and do it. So use this time now. Just you'll learn more about LinkedIn, especially as you go on college career, but it's not a social media site, it's a professional development site. It's where you can kind of show off what you've done for your career. And it's not just in sports or hospitality, it can be anything. It just depends on like who you connect with. That's where you can see like different job postings. That's where you see people saying, Dr. Sherman does these all the time where he does his reflections. He did one for when he went to India for the Pacers trip last year. He did one for the bubble. You just kind of you get what you learn from it. And so people can say, "Oh, he actually did learn something. That's actually really cool knowledge. He knows what he's talking about. I can use him later on once events start opening up." So pretty much just use this time to learn as much as you can.
Yeah, put it succinctly. Yeah, that's a great point. Next one is very similar. Being a freshman, do you think that is a hindrance at all on how the best way for them to get involved? Is there something else that they might be doing that could put them a step ahead? I've seen some people shaking their head on the panel.
I mean, I don't think being a freshman hinders you at all. I mean, um, people like when freshmen volunteer, and plus, when you volunteer as a freshman, then you also have 3 more years to volunteer. If you wait till your junior year to volunteer, you're not going to have as many opportunities. And Sherman can attest, he's had people come to him as juniors and seniors, looking for jobs. And he's like, "What have you done since freshman year?" And some of them will say nothing. And he was like, "Well, that's why you don't have any opportunities." So get involved early. Make sure, you'll do it in class. It might even be an assignment in this class, but make sure you have a LinkedIn, get that started, and kind of make a running list of everything you're doing that may, make yourself more marketable in the future, and, add to your resume. You'll also do a resume in one of your career classes as well. But basically that stuff is what you need to do to put yourself ahead of everybody else. But definitely being a freshman, get involved as a freshman. That's like, we said you're at a little disadvantage right now, but come the spring when events are happening and if volunteers are needed, like, jump on it. Don't say, "Oh, I'm a freshman, so I have to wait." Jump on it and take those spots.
And for everybody on the panel, what are the best places for people to find those opportunities? We've partnered with workinsports.com and Intro to Sport Management, where they're doing some professional development on the career side, but also it's a job board. right? So what are some other options that you guys have had experience with to get into the industry?
First one, Teamwork Online. It's free to sign up. You can do like a premium one, but it's free to sign up. That's the first place. If so, in sports industry, they're going to start out keeping everything internal as far as job posting. They're going to try to find people from within. If they can't do that, the first place we're going to go to is Teamwork Online. That's literally everywhere that all teams will post. So and you can create like it's kind of like a resume, but it's more in depth because you can also put what you're interested in, your education, certificates, pretty much anything you put. It's like a more in-depth resume, but that's definitely the first place I would go to. And then LinkedIn, obviously, you can narrow it down more places. That's kind of like their third option they do. They'll put on LinkedIn, or you can find connections that then know jobs. So yeah, those two for sure.
Anyone want to add to that?
Sports
Other
management.
places? Go on, Kyle.
Management Club is such a great resource if you're trying to volunteer. Every meeting, basically, there's one or two at least new volunteer opportunities that we have coming up, and and you're volunteering with a group of people that you know and that you're friends with, which I think can improve the experience for you. But on top of that, you can create an account with Indiana Sports Corp, their volunteer system. You'll get emails once things get posted. The only thing is like with big events like Big Ten football, Big Ten football last year, or no, Big Ten basketball, sorry. Big Ten basketball this year filled up within an hour and a half of being posted to the public. So it's competitive trying to get shifts through that. But we typically with Sports Management Club will have like a set of 20 to 40 volunteer spots for that event anyways. So being involved there is really good. I know we had some things like popping up. We had some guest welcome type roles and other things that kind of popped up later in the event planning process. And I literally sent a message in the group me for Sport Management Club and said, hey guys, we have 40 positions opening up for the Big Ten football or Big Ten basketball. There's probably not any other ways to get involved if you're looking, it's just too late, but this is there if you guys need it. And so that goes to you guys first, because of that connection. It doesn't always happen, but Megan knows that Sports Management Club, Megan Barr, the volunteer coordinator for Indiana Sports Corp, knows that Sports Management Club is somewhere that she can go and get quality volunteers. So you get really good opportunities through that. I'd highly recommend being a part of Sport Management Club.
And if you look in the chat, Kyle just shared the group me for the Sport Management Club. So yeah, that's one of your top ones. Anything that I get, I funnel through SMC first. And I've gotten some direct calls from ESPN events for the Champions Classic. I've gotten direct calls from ISC saying, hey, we need 10 volunteers for this in the last minute. And I'm like, I'm on it, and we fill it in a heartbeat. As a matter of fact, Kyle Metchelin's internship came from a phone call that I had. So, Kyle, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I had a really good interview with one organization, and it seemed like it was pretty much closed, but a few months went past and it was still nothing was official. It was getting close to when I needed to intern, and so I was getting a little bit stressed out. And so I was just talking to Dr. Sherman. A little bit stressed out is a light way of putting it. I saw Dr. Sherman laugh at that. But so one day I was talking to Dr. Sherman. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I thought that this was pretty much a done deal. Now it's falling through. And, January is, I think, about a month away at this point, and that's when I'm supposed to start my internship. And, for me, I really wanted to graduate on time. So I was stressed and a little frustrated that I hadn't earned anything. Dr. Sherman was like, okay, well, let me ask around. He sent a text to Megan Barr and said, hey, are there any internships that haven't been filled with Indiana Sports Corp? And she said, potentially, give me a minute. And then I think the next day I had a phone interview, and the day after that I had an offer for the position. And that's because I made a strong connection with Dr. Sherman. I put really hard work into his classes and showed that I'm someone who took myself and my professional career seriously. Dr. Sherman was willing to go out and take a shot to get me something. And I can't even say how much I appreciate it. That was an amazing internship. It got me out of a really tough bind. The connections with your professors are very important. I could talk about how much the work that I did in Dr. Pierce's class and the connections I made with him helped me too. I went to an academic conference in my senior year. I worked for Dr. Pierce. Your professors are amazing resources. Do not, you don't want to do things to burn bridges with them. You want to make sure that you get to know them well and that you prove yourself as someone that they're worth, that's worth their time, basically, to help you out.
Yeah, like what Kyle said, thanks to just my connection with Dr. Sherman and Dr. Pierce, I got to be a part of 2 different case study competitions. One was in Nashville at their baseball stadium, and then another one with Erica. We got to go to Chicago, and unfortunately, we didn't make to the final round, but we had a lot of fun because we got to walk around Chicago and go to Wrigley Field, hit some balls, and go bowling, and got to see Dr. Sherman be crazy. So it was fun.
Yes, I can be from time to time. It doesn't happen often, but I can be. One more question piled in. So since a lot of these students are being introduced to the field for the first time, and you guys and trying to make connections and things like that, so there's so many platforms out there, right? LinkedIn, and you got Work in Sports, you got Teamwork Online, all this other stuff. In your guys' opinion, who do you think are the people or companies that these students should reach out to and try to connect with?
Indianapolis-based teams. I mean, they're right at your fingertips, so why not try to reach out to them first? I mean, what's the worst? I mean, when normal circumstances come back, I mean, ask somebody to like grab a cup of coffee or something. I mean, what's the worst they can say? No, and then just move on to the next person in the business till they're like, oh my God, why does this person keep emailing us? But most of the time, all professionals want us to succeed, so they're more than willing to help college students. So don't be afraid to reach out. But there's no reason to reach out to like a team in Seattle if you have like the Colts or somebody here. I mean, eventually you might want to reach out to them, but start with like what you have at your fingertips here, and then expand your network as you get to know more people. But I would say start with the Indianapolis-based organizations, hotels, and teams here.
And I would say with that, like when you're reaching out, don't instantly just ask for a job or ask for volunteer. Just introduce yourself, say you're a student. That the key word is student because they're gonna be like, oh, someone I can actually help with because they want to help. And then you can even do it now. You can have little Zoom meetings with them, and then once things open back up, you can go have coffee or like I don't know, if you're not 21, you have a soda, but you can just kind of just meet with them, just ask them questions, get to know them on a personal level so they can see you as that student wanting to learn, wanting to get experience. And then that way down the road, when something does come up and you see it, you can reach back out to them and say, just kind of reintroduce yourself and say, I saw this position was open. Is it, can I do it? Pretty much.
To go off of that, yeah, people are willing to help, and the Indianapolis teams are amazing. And I think that there's a really cool community in the Indianapolis sports industry. Like it is so intertwined and people know each other and there's so much overlap that making strong connections anywhere is always good and can lead to something else opening up. And the thing is like I did not experience a bad culture organization in my time there. Everywhere is really, I think, worth your time. Pacers was amazing on conversion crew. Grounds crew with the Indians was great. And I got to talk to a lot of other areas. I'm trying to think of other stuff. Indiana Sports Corp is absolutely just full of amazing, kind, and helpful people. You could probably look through their staff directory and shoot an email to someone. I mean, things are busy right now, so you might not hear. You have to think about that too. And if you get told no once, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a no forever too. Being persistent. I know, sometimes it takes a couple emails to get a reply or to get what you're hoping for, but I think it's really worth it. There's so many knowledgeable and helpful people in the Indianapolis sports team that I don't think you should feel intimidated at all by the prospect of reaching out to them and, asking for a shadow, obviously, again, you'd probably want to see if you can found a relationship, ask them a few questions about what they're doing and decide if that's something that you would be interested in shadowing. And then maybe that opportunity comes up and you can tag along for a game and see what their job looks like. and maybe that leads to something else. It's always like, I think showing an effort to learn and better yourself in the sports industry is really important to being successful and making strong connections.
So the final question that came in, and this is my favorite question, and we've got about 3 minutes. So think about this real quick and fire away. Each one of the panelists, will start with Erica. What is the most influential connection that you've made, and where did it lead?
Oh, I got this. Okay, so I was a community and player relations intern for the Indiana Fever, and I got to work very closely with Tamika Catchings, literally the coolest person I've ever met in my life. She is so humble, and she, just like everyone was saying, like, these people are willing to help students, and they're willing to help people who will put in the work. So, like, just kind of reiterating again, like, if you're a good worker and a hard worker, those people will notice, and those are the best people to notice, because then you keep that connection with them. Like, I will still text Tamika. I told her happy birthday a couple weeks ago, and she still texts me back. So it's like, you just have, once you make those connections, you keep them, because for me, in a little less than a year, come July, I'm gonna be in the job hunt. So those are the connections that you want to keep, so that you can reach out when the time comes when you need an opportunity.
Who's next?
I'll go. I'll tear you up, Sherman. I'm going to say you. I mean, I have to. I mean, without you, like, who knows where I'd probably be on the street somewhere. I mean, you kind of guide all your students in the right direction if they're willing to put in the effort and, kind of put us out there and give us the opportunities. So I know you're crying over there, but I'll give you a tissue.
Dropping a tear. I'm shedding one right now. What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about another one, but Dr. Sherman was so important to everything, I guess. But I will say, I think Megan Barr, my internship director or supervisor, was really helpful for me, and not necessarily solely in like professional development, but she really helped me like develop my self-confidence in a workplace and office environment. That was something that I hadn't had experience with. She was great at empowering me to take, make decisions on my own. And, like I felt like full-time staff there, and that has done a lot for my confidence in applying for jobs and stuff like that. Like, just being confident that you're doing good work and taking that feedback and being able to use it to keep improving what you're doing was so helpful for me.
Michael, what about you?
Well, you obviously, even though sometimes you made me angry, but you always push me to be better and to get the best out of myself. And I'll never forget at our career conference in Chicago after we presented, how you told me that was like the best job you've ever seen me present. And from there, from the first second I had my class with you, just the growth I had thanks to you, and that just made me feel better. And then I would say another one was Erica. She will know, Matt Turnian with Grand Park, just because I started working there in February 2019 as a operations assistant. I had to leave in beginning of May because I had to do my required internship for school, and I did it with bullpen tournaments, the baseball side, just all because I needed money because I'm broke. But so I did it with them, and then when I talked to Matt about it, instead of him saying, "Well, you're only here for 2 months, thanks, see ya," he actually said, "Let's keep the door open. We won't do an extra interview or anything. We'll just keep you on board, so that way once you're done, you can just come back." And also I did my Colts internship last year too. So I went straight from bullpen to the training camp at Grand Park. And once training camp got done, it was only game days and a few events here and there. Reached back out to Matt, and he said, "Yeah, come on back. We still have you technically on our staff, so come on back." And then from August to March, when the pandemic hit, and we left that job, then me trying to look for a full-time job, instead of him kind of getting mad saying, "Oh, you want to leave," and all that, he was always supportive of me. He always helped me try to find that next step for me. He would ask me about my interviews I had. He would give me advice. And then now going back out to it, me struggling to find a full-time job, I just said, hey, I'm just reach back out to him, and he just asked me a few questions here. My mindset was that, so I didn't just would leave. I told him I'm here to stay for it, and he said, awesome. Well, we want you to come back. So the fact that I made an impression on him, I guess, and he said everyone else at Grant Park, I hope. Hopefully Erica says that's right, but I can't tell with that look. I think that's a no. So give me a bad look. But anyway, so I mean, the fact that he just essentially Matt and Dr. Sherman both pushed me to be better and kept giving me opportunities, and I delivered on my end, and they keep coming back when they need something or they want to help me.
All right. Well, that sounds like a whole lot of information for you guys to take in. So if you have questions or anything, if you want to get connected with any of these folks, the group me for SMC, I could share emails with you about for each of these folks, and you could have coffee, chat, Zoom call, text, whatever, just to connect with them a little bit on a deeper level. Appreciate all of you guys coming in. Let's give them a virtual hand for coming into our classroom, so to speak. Thank you, Evan, for using, they got the emojis coming up. Nice, I like it. All right, so Thursday, we're off. You guys don't have to deal with Zoom Thursday. I'm giving you a day off there. And I will see you next Tuesday. So you guys enjoy the rest of your week.